Hello and welcome to another Lamp Bible Study. My name is James and I will continue to be your host of Lamp Bible Study. And so today we are still in Genesis. We will continue off where we left off in Genesis 11. And I'm reading from an NIV Collegiate Bible currently. And so what was on my mind today? Quite a bit again when it comes to just life and things going on and just meditating on the word, trying to apply things that I'm learning, that I'm still learning, that I'm reading through the Holy Word to my life. Thinking about doing things without seeking an award, with doing things willingly, and doing things, and then also with that being example, trying to be example, try to live a life where there's not a doubt or there's not a question. And I believe when we walk the way, that shows there isn't a question in other people's minds. So, but I pray and hope that these Lamp Bible studies are a help to you. They are definitely a help to me. I'm always excited every Tuesday and Thursday when I get to start filming these about the next Bible study. And in between, I think of things to say, and then I forget them as soon as the Bible study starts. So let's get started. Let's get right into it with Genesis chapter 11. The Tower of Babel. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As men moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men were building. The Lord said, "If, as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. And so, reading over those passages, a little backstory. A lot of people see this story as this truth, this actual history, as a little bit confusing, because they're like, okay, well, man got together and they started building and they were trying to make this great city, and they specifically were building this tall building together, and then the Lord came down and mixed up the language so they couldn't understand each other. People don't understand is that the Lord from the time of Noah blessed the people and said, "Go and be fruitful, go throughout the earth." And so at this time, instead of going throughout the earth, they were congregating into one place. And that wasn't a good thing, because then their pride started taking over. And the pride is something that can definitely run into sin. It's something that even the devil had. He had so much pride in himself that he challenged God, his own creator. And so when it comes to the people, us humans, we were not following the Lord's order, which was to go out, multiply, and worship the Lord. Instead, they had gotten prideful and wanted to build a building up to the heavens to see if they could, if man could climb up to the heavens. And they were congregating all in one place, and that's when their ignorance and pride started taking over. So that's a little bit of the backstory. Now, because it's Bible study, how do we apply it to ourselves? There's a lot of different ways to apply it to ourselves too. Do we do this? Do, according to our own accomplishments or things, do we kind of settle into one place? Do we kind of get too comfortable, as in not wanting to spread the holy word? Or being like, well, I'm at home. I don't really want to talk to somebody else, or I live in this area, so I really don't feel like now's the time to spread the holy gospel. Or do we also, you can look at it as in, do you or I build things up? You know, it's going to be talked about lots, so I'll just bring it up. I know this Land Bible Studies on YouTube, which is considered social media, and that's a good, and I believe that's a good thing. But do we also utilize social media for? We obviously use it for ourselves, but we do it to build ourselves up, to be prideful, to be not thankful, or not even think of the Lord in the good times. So those are just some things to think about. And so what kind of thoughts or feelings came to your mind when we read over these passages? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. From Shem to Abram. This is the account of Shem. 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arphaxad. I had this before, and I can't remember how to pronounce it now. And after he became the father of Arphaxad, Shem lived 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad had lived 35 years, he became the father of Shelah. And after he became the father of Shelah, Arphaxad lived 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah lived 30 years, he became the father of Eber. And after he became the father of Eber, Shelah lived 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber had lived 34 years, he became the father of Peleg. And after he became the father of Peleg, Eber lived 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg had lived 30 years, he became the father of Reu. And after he became the father of Reu, Peleg lived 209 years and had other sons and daughters. I'm thinking of a video game and how people, I think we pronounce it wrong or something, but there's a character in fighting game spelt differently, Ryu or something. But yeah, so I'm trying to pronounce this name correctly, but I think I'm butchering it. So I apologize if you do understand, or if you do know how to pronounce the name, say it, of course. If you know the pronunciation, you can type it in the comments. Feel free to do so. Another point is that if you notice that the lifespan is starting to get lower and lower and lower. We went from people living over 900 plus years to 700 or 800 plus years to 700 to 600. Now we're all the way down to 400. That's still a long time, especially when it comes to human lifespan. So continuing on, let's continue to read. When Reu had lived 32 years, he became the father of Serug. And after he became the father of Serug, Reu lived 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug had lived 30 years, he became the father of Nahor. And after he became the father of Nahor, Serug lived 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor had lived 29 years, he became the father of Terah. And after he became the father of Terah, Nahor lived 119 years and had other sons and daughters. After Terah had lived 70 years, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. There is a humming outside once again. I'm trying to figure out. This is interesting. But anyways, let's continue to read. This is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, in the land of his birth. Okay, so remember Lot and remember Chaldeans. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now, Sarai was barren. She had no children. And so, for those of you who know that Abram and Sarai are going to be very important, so take note of those two names, and their names are going to change a little bit. We'll find that out here shortly. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. So, reading over this portion, we've now starting to come across some very important figures, especially Abram and Sarai, as well as Lot, another person that we're going to take note of, as well as the people called Chaldeans, who will learn who those will become, or who they also have another name. So we'll go over that here as well. And we're just getting, again, this is from Shem to Abram, so we're getting the genealogy of the people. And it's important because these people play a role in the continuation throughout the Bible. And so, and the importance, we'll see just how very important it is. And again, back in those days, they didn't have where they spit in a tube and send it to DNA or swab or whatever. They had writings, they could write it down, or they, word of mouth and such. That's how they kept very important information. So, such as genealogy. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when you read this about how the lives, the length of time that they're living, about these people that we're going to learn about? What kind of thoughts or feelings come up? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The call of Abram. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abram left, as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. And they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. And so now we're learning that the importance of Abram and how Abram is going to be utilized by the Lord. And he's going to bless him, and he's going to turn Abram into a great nation. And part of the reason why is, is because you see people are expanding, but not everybody is worshiping the Lord, unfortunately. And so those who are still following the way, the Lord's seeing, and he's seeing who he can utilize. And that's another thing with our own life, when we are trying to walk in the way and have a relationship with the Lord, then we can be ready to be utilized. And a lot of people want to be prepared. And that was another thing that came up in a Sunday school lesson recently, like how being prepared, and I said, one thing is that, when a friend or somebody stops by and you weren't expecting anybody, how do you feel? Especially if they're at your house, when you open the door, are you ready? Are you ready for them to be in the kitchen? Are you ready for them to see a room or your living room or your restroom, bathroom or such, are you ready for the, or what may have you, and one part of it is we need to be ready, right? And be prepared, because that will definitely help, right? And walking with the Lord. However, it's also not of our choosing. So look at many people throughout the Bible. Were they ready or prepared when the Lord called on them? Or was it a surprise? Were they shocked or like, oh my gosh, So think about it. It's just things to think about, during a Bible study. So what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Abram in Egypt. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while, because the famine was severe. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that she was a very beautiful woman. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, manservants and maidservants, and camels. A quick pause. So we're going to notice that the Lord's gonna direct the people that he utilizes every now and then to go to Egypt because of a famine that's gonna hit the land. And so they were in Canaan. They had to go to Egypt because of the famine, because the people who were living in Canaan more than likely were not following the way and worshiping the Lord. So he was doing justice. And we're gonna see a pattern, like we're gonna see that happen again. For those of you who joined us previously, we're going to see that. We're going to see that. So I just remember that I didn't go over something, but it wasn't on one of these videos. Anyways, so we'll see that they kind of bounce back and forth a couple times from Canaan to Egypt, and there's specific reasons why. So let's continue to read. But the Lord inflicted serious disease on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abram. What have you done to me? He said. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife, take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. So the Lord was protecting him. You know, he was protecting Abram and Sarai, and he was protecting their marriage. He was protecting them. And so, and Abram knew that he could have been killed had they not went about this way. And so, the Lord protected both of them, and he not only protected him, but he, remember, Abram was going down there because they were escaping the famine, so they may have not had a whole lot. And now, thanks to the current Pharaoh, he acquired sheep and cattle, donkeys, manservants, and maidservants. So his wealth had started expanding just by going and following what the Lord had guided him to do, what the Lord had told him to do. And so that can also happen with us. When you hear that quiet whisper or that inkling, pray about it. Ask God, are you asking me to do something? And if you get that peace about it, then follow through, because you never know. It could be a huge benefit to you. You could go in it, even think about it like you could be doing something that's an expenditure to you, right? Not only is it time and energy, but it could be even economic expenditure. But you do it, and then boom, it turns out to be a lot better than you thought, and you could end up being paid fivefold, because the Lord goes above and beyond all the time. So just things to think about. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Abram and Lot separate. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. From the Negev, he went from place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier, and where he had first built an altar. There Abram called on the name of the Lord. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, but the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herdsmen and the herdsmen of Lot. The Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. So Abram said to Lot, "Let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and mine, for we are brothers. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left." Lot looked up and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, toward Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. So I had to point out something, and this was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So remember, this is back during that time frame. So now they're going back. I believe they're going back towards Canaan, and so that's where we're getting back to those areas that like Sodom and Gomorrah, and those two are going to be notable as we're going to learn very quickly. The Lord said to Abram, let's continue to read, sorry. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, "Lift up your eyes from where you are and look north and south, east and west. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. So Abram moved his tents and went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he built an altar to the Lord. So, with that, you have Lot, who is akin to Abram. And so they both are coming up out of Egypt wealthy. And because of that, they have lots of herds. They have lots of animals, and they need a lot of pasture land. And so they were moving together. So even though one had cattle and the other one had cattle, there wasn't sufficient amount for them to continue to move together. And of course, there were possibly quarrels, like it was saying. And because, at this time, they probably both had people that were attending the flocks, their own flocks, and there may have been issues that arise. And so Abram was like, okay, hey, let's not continue to be together like this. We can visit with each other, but let's be apart but together. You go one way, I'll go another way. We'll so that way we can utilize the land correctly in between us. And so Lot had chosen the area that had, unfortunately, Sodom and Gomorrah in it, and Abram chose the other area. So there's going to be some things that we're going to learn fairly quickly. What kind of thoughts or feelings come up to your mind about what we just read? I know that looking at our lives, has there been something of a similar nature? People use like friendships, oh, we're just growing apart. Is that really the case? Or do you need a moment? Do you have two people who are in competition with each other, and they shouldn't really be in competition with each other because you're friends or your family? So different things to think about and different ways to look at this. This is the living word. And of course, if something is not the same to you, that's okay, because you could be at a different time in your life, or the Holy Spirit could be trying to acknowledge or trying to get your attention for something that it relates, just not in this specific way. So that's why I always ask, what kind of thoughts or feelings come up? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Abram rescues Lot. At this time, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, went to war against Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemember, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor. All these latter kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, the Salt Sea. For 12 years, they had been subject to Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year, they rebelled. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him went out and defeated the Rephites in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, the Zuzites in Ham, the Emites in Sheva, Kirathim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran, near the desert. Whew, goodness gracious. Again, if you know how to correctly pronounce I can't even speak now, how to correctly pronunciate these names, please do so, while we're reading. If you have the correct pronunciation, how, just type it in the comments too. Then they turned back and went to in Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites who were living in Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor, marched out and drew up their battle lines in the valley of Siddim against Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arok, king of Lasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some of the men fell into them, and the rest fled to the hills. The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food. Then they went away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. One who had escaped came and reported this to Abram, the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre, the Amorite, a brother of Ishkal and Anar, all of whom were allied with Abram. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people. So Abram heard about what happened to Lot because of this war that happened in the area that Lot had chose to go to. And so unfortunately, Lot was caught up in this war with these different kings. And so you have Abram, he learned of this, and it says, and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. So Abram was known as he was practicing the way, he was practicing worshiping the Lord, and he took 318 trained men. So where did he get all those men? Well, he started collecting wealth from Egypt and out of Egypt, and he was continuing to be blessed because the Lord had told him who's going to bless him. And so Abram was able to rescue his nephew Lot. And so without any major issues, he was able to do it with the Lord. The Lord fought his battles, helped him rescue his family member. So think about that. Think about that in our lives. Think about that in your situation, in my situation, that the Lord's always there. And I've said this in other Bible studies, the Lord goes before us, always. The Lord's always working. We always say, oh, I always hear, the Lord's working in the background. No. He's working in the foreground. There is, we have to say that for ourselves, like humanistic side. But the Lord is Alpha and the Omega, beginning and the end. He can be everywhere. He's working all the time. And so he already knows how our life is going to be. But we still have that choice. We still have that choice. And he knows what choices we're going to make. He already knows them. But he's not going to force us to do something. He wants to hear it from us. He wants to hear it from you. He wants to hear it from me. So that, I love the Lord. I love Jesus, so, but how does it make you feel? Like, that was an accomplishment as well. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? Abram was able to utilize 318 men, and I'm pretty sure that these 4 kings had thousands of people, and he was able to rout them and get back his family member and all their possessions. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. After Abram returned from defeating Kedorlaomer and that pronouncing and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Sheva, that is, the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Pause. Melchizedek. Very, very important. Even though it's mentioned briefly, literally right here, as in pretty much the story of Melchizedek, we now know he's a priest. We now know that he worshiped God. He was priest of God Most High. And what we're going to find out is what kind of person he is, because people are going to be compared to Melchizedek, the order of Melchizedek, meaning that he did such a good job, like he followed the way, the Lord so well that they're going to say and utilize him as the standard, as the high bar, what you need to meet, what you need to be like. And so Melchizedek is very important. So I would take note, whether in your head or on notepaper or something, take note of Melchizedek, priest. He was priest of God Most High. And he just blessed Abram by God Most High. Let's continue to read. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand to the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and have taken an oath that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the thong of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten, and the share that belongs to the men who went with me, to Anar, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share. So he's already telling them, which is a good thing, because what men do, we like to glorify ourselves. We like that pride. We like the arrogance. We like to say, oh yeah, I was the one that helped that person be accomplished or helped that person be successful. And I've gone as far currently in my life as to make sure that people don't, they say thank you to me. And I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. But I also like to mention God. I'm like, thank God. If that benefited you, thank God, or remember to thank God. I was placed here, or I helped you, or someone helped me, and I'm like, thank you and thank the Lord that you helped me. And definitely something to think about. And in this case, he was trying to make sure that the king of Sodom didn't increase his pride and his arrogance. And he wanted to show that all of what Abram had was provided by the Lord. He wanted to make sure. He said he will not accept a gift. And for one, Sodom, we're going to read about here real soon, or eventually, what's going to happen to Sodom and Gomorrah, in fact, and in some more chapters. So not this Bible study, but another Bible study. I think the next Bible study. What happens to them? Because obviously it's known that Sodom, especially the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah, but in this case Sodom, because a king of Sodom was there visiting Abram, was known that the king of Sodom, he wasn't following the way. He wasn't worshiping the God Most High. So think about that. It was like someone coming who, is not a good person. In today's terminology, you could say what have you, uh, what, like somebody who steals, a sleazy, who's, not not a good person. Has power, of course, on earth, with authority and such, because he's the king. He's a king, but somebody who does not treat others nicely or kindly, who's selfish, who's out for themselves to protect themselves and their own riches. Think about that. Do you see that today? Does that affect your life? Are you someone who tries to protect everything you have constantly? Or do you live in fear because you have some things and you have to have security because of it? I've noticed myself, that over my lifetime, how things have gotten more, you hear so much more than when I did when I was younger, about safety this and safety that. Get some type of security, some kind of special security for you, some type of special security for the place you live, some type of special security for your vehicle, some type of special security for your computer, some special security for your phone, special security for everything that you can think of. I know we like insurances, we like insurance, we like to have the thought that something is covered, or that something, whether, especially in here in this country, whether health is covered and such. But do we take those insurances to a step beyond because of fear? What are we afraid of? And why are we afraid of? And do we have to be afraid? And why should we be afraid? There's a lot there. There's a lot of things that you can apply and think about to your own life. Are you in it for yourself? Are you in it for greed? Are you trying to, because this Sodom is going out because he just noticed that this one person with not a whole lot of people routed people who they couldn't touch, who they couldn't defeat. Him and his kingdom ran, as well as all the other kings. So was the intent intentional out of fear, as well as, let me get in good with this person, see if they can help me? Was it a selfish reason? So think about that in your life, and things about how it can be applied to our life today. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Before I go on, I've noticed that I'm flying through these 5 chapters. I'm shocked right now. I am shocked. So I'll have a little bit of time here today. So we'll go over some more things, because Genesis has got a lot in it. And it's a lot of Genesis actually is going to be brought up all the way throughout the Bible, especially in the New Testament. So what people, there's a lot of links. It goes back and forth, literally Genesis to Revelations. Genesis, you can jump back and forth. So there's a lot here. There's a lot to think about. So let's continue to read. God's covenant with Abram. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. I'm going to reread that. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, O sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the heavens and count the stars. If needed, you can count them. If indeed. Look up at the heavens and count the stars. If indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. So Abram believed the Lord, believed what the Lord just told him, and so the Lord credited it to him as righteousness. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, O sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. So I'm going to reread this. As the sun was setting, because this is important. Plus, I was stumbling over the words a little bit. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your fathers in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. So, the Lord just gave Abram a prophecy. And for those of you who have read the Bible before or read through, know that that prophecy is going to be because when Israel ends up going to Egypt, they start out small, they go to Egypt because of famine, and someone was sent there. I'm not going to say the name right now because it's back in Exodus. Go back to Exodus, Lamp Bible Study. And it's at the end of this book too. It's at the end of this book as to the reason why they went to Egypt. And then the reason why they left Egypt is in Exodus. Because this prophecy is going to come to pass. They're going to go to Egypt to escape famine. They're going to be there for 400 years. And during that time frame, they're going to start getting mistreated because Egypt's going to be jealous and they're going to want to utilize these people and take advantage of them. And so, and even though they were being mistreated and utilized and they were enslaved, they still grew. They still were prosperous in number and kept growing and growing. And everything they did was protected, blessed by the Lord. And also, he's saying, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. So he already knows the Amorites are going to continue to do wrong, but it hasn't reached that point. So he's giving us a little hint at the future that he's going to cast judgment. And he has just judgment because he can't accept sin. So, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? Knowing that we just read about a prophecy that it gave Abram. How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. We'll just finish up right here. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Kadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Riphites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites." So, what was I going to... The Lord... Okay, so when the sun had set and darkness had fallen, the smoking fire pot with blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. So this was the Lord being... how does some like commentators, some people believe that this is the Lord acting as the priest and the whole thing, like he's doing the whole presentation himself. And so the smoking pot is representative of and the walking in between the these halves of the carcasses, the passing of the between the pieces was the sign of the covenant with Abram. And so the Lord was showing that it was complete, it was fulfilled with that act. And so, and that was while for Abram, to complete the covenant for the descendants and making a great nation from Abram. And so, and we know where. To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates. And the people who had currently lived there, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Kadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Riphites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. So there's a reason. There's always a reason for that. And what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when you read this, especially what the Lord just did, passing between the pieces, a smoking fire pot? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? If you were to be back in that time and saw something like that, as a sign, as a covenant sign. I know, feeling the holy presence, I'd probably be face down on the ground, you know. So I'm just in awe of seeing God, a presence of God Most High, who deserves that name and more. So let's do a quick review of what we went over today. We went over the Tower of Babel. And how that story can be kind of confusing, how it's like, well, why does it make a difference that they all came together under one language and built this city and try to build this tower to the heavens? Well, think about that. That's not what the Lord had wanted wanted man to do. He wanted man to go out throughout the earth and populate and continue to populate and be a blessing and follow him. But these people weren't. They had came together at one point. All the people came together at one point, built this great city, and was building this tower to the heavens. Why? Because of pride. Pride, that was sin. So the Lord didn't want them to do that. So he corrected it justly. And he didn't just correct it. He created different languages from it. You know, a lot of languages that have been kept throughout the centuries that we may have today. So he turned something as what he needed to do, which was disperse the people, but he also allowed for there to be additional development, by these different languages. So that, I mean, that's new. That's something that's God created. So, and we can be thankful for that. It helps us keep us on track. From Shem to Abram, then we went through the descendants and how the importance of the timeline and how, you know, they don't have DNA things like we have today. You know, it was all word of mouth and written. And so, and we notice how the lives, the length of life, the time span, the lifespan is starting to lower. It was from 900 years to 800 years to 700 years, 5, 4, 3, 2. So we're starting to see that. Some people you can think it could be related to, we already know that the Lord said that man's time would be limited to 120 years. We can also see there being a necessity due to how sinful man can get and destructive. We also went over how the call of Abram, how the Lord chose Abram and told him that he was going to be he was going to use Abram to become a great nation, and how he was going to bless Abram. With that blessing, we also see that the Lord had told him that he was going to give them what land he was going to give them. And that was going to be the promised land, eventually the promised land. And so Abram had built an altar there to worship the Lord. And then Abram, because of famine though, that happens, we get to Abram going to Egypt, and him having to and Abram having to tell the Egyptians that Sarai was his sister, even though Sarai was his wife, and that was to save his life, his own life. And so as well as protect Sarai, because he knew that they loved each other, and that as long as he had told him that that was his sister, they would spare his life, but she would be taken care of. And she was. And that wasn't good for the Pharaoh, because the Pharaoh ended up having issues. He ended up being having a serious disease. And the Pharaoh was probably enlightened that the Lord was doing this. The Lord spoke to him, you know, was like, may have spoken to him and said, hey, you're messing with my people here. I don't know what you got going on, but these are my people. I'm protecting them. And so the Pharaoh summoned Abram and said, hey, this is your wife. This wasn't your sister. It was in fear. He gave him more possessions and said, okay, be on your way. You know, probably gave him some more. Not the first time this is going to happen. This is the first time that people are going to end up going to Egypt and coming out richer than they went down there too. And so his wealth was so much that Abram had to separate from his family member Lot, because they both started gaining wealth. Wealth being cattle and different herds and such. And so Abram saw to it that he wanted to ask and give Lot the first go about the land that they see before him. And so Lot chose one side, and it was noted about Sodom and Gomorrah, which we'll get to on the next Bible study. And Abram chose the other side. And so what ends up happening is the side where Lot had chose, there was getting ready to be a fight. There was getting ready to be a fight between 9 different kings, and unfortunately Lot was drawn up into that fight. You know, he wasn't supposed to be involved, but he was captured, and word got back to Abram. And Abram, because Abram the Hebrew, so it was pointing out that he was worshiping the Lord, he was following the way, and he rescued Lot and all of his possessions, everything. He rescued everything, and without any of his 318 men getting killed. And so then you see that, let's see here. That's he got a visit from Sodom. That's when Sodom came. But the priest Melchizedek, who was very important, Melchizedek, he was priest of God Most High. And so he really did believe in and meditate in the Lord's word and worship the Lord. And he's going to be set as a standard. And we'll get more and more information about him. Even though he's just mentioned right here, we'll get we'll get just how important he was later on, over and over again, because he's going to be the standard that is of following the Lord. He's going to be the standard. And so he gave, blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And so Sodom saw that, and he wanted to kind of get in on something, you know. He was like, whoa, this person just came out of nowhere and defeated the people we couldn't defeat. So let me try to get in good with him, try to use him. And Abram saw right through it. He saw right through it and told him, no, I'm not going to accept any gifts or anything from you. And so we see that Abram was not going to allow for this person to try to use him. And he wasn't going to allow himself to be used. And that's things that we can apply into our life as well. God's covenant with Abram. We learned that Abram was still childless. You know, him and Sarai was still barren. But God told him, God made a covenant and made this covenant with him that he would be the head over nations. You know, nations would come from Abram. It would not go to his family relative. That God will use Abram, and he will create a nation out of him. And so that's where we leave off today, is that Abram is going to become a nation, and God just made a covenant with him. So what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Here we are again at another end of a fantastic Lamp Bible study. Thank you very much for joining me today. Please continue to pray for me. I'll continue to pray for you. Lamp's Bible studies are done and posted every Tuesdays and Thursdays, as well as be sure to check out the flashlights if you are on the go, because those are a lot shorter as well. I always will have clips of the Lamp Bible studies as well throughout the week. And so I hope and pray that we continue to seek God's wisdom through his holy word. And if you have any questions or concerns, or if you just want to get in contact, there is an email listed on the contact page, as well as you can at any time leave a comment, kudos, whatever. So thank you very much. I hope and pray that these are helpful to you, to allow you to think as well, and to get out your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts. Because I know reading the Bible, going places and just hearing sermons and such, sometimes you want to speak. And so this is the time to do it. This is the perfect time to allow for yourself to learn and meditate and grow and understand and acknowledge. So wherever you are, I hope that you have a blessed morning, a blessed day, a blessed afternoon, a blessed evening, and a blessed night. God bless.